Let's talk about some of the common problems that this function runs into, and not just talk about the problems, but like how do they overcome them? So it might be issues within, like, communication might be one of them, right? But what are other, some problems, just to give, to give them a heads up on, so that they might be able to not have to fall in that booby trap.
Oh yeah, I feel my anxiety rising just thinking about what could happen to the content manager
Yeah.
if these problems happen. But one of the things that can happen, since this person is kind of the central point of contact for all of these different working groups and functions, is there could be misalignment among different groups. And so, for example, marketing could have one idea about what this sales play should look like, and leadership could have a different idea, and then reps could say, no, that's garbage. I'm not sending that messaging. I want to do this instead. And so the
That
content
never happens.
manager, never. Reps in marketing and leadership are always in full alignment. But that really falls on the content manager to raise their hand and say, hey, you guys need to work this out. Because again, the content manager is not the highest level strategist within the org. They're the executive branch, and you need clear, and this kind of goes into the next problem too, but you need a clear decision-making structure. So when the content manager comes into that roadblock or that bottleneck in the content supply chain, that content manager knows who to go to and who to say to, hey, this is what we're hearing from the reps. The content writer worked with the reps. They gave this feedback on this messaging. This is their feedback. This is their pushback. And then, marketing or leadership or the solution owner then can address that. But the content manager is responsible for kind of helping. They're kind of the mediator as well, right? Helping different departments or different functions within the org work things out if they're not in full alignment. And this actually goes back to, something that we'll see in orgs that don't have this function. As when we go in and when we function as the content manager and the content writer for some teams, we'll go in, we'll get directive from leadership to say, okay, here are the, 8 different sequences or cadences that we want you to write, and then we'll go to the reps and we'll write the sequences, and then we'll go back to leadership, and leadership says, what? This is what our reps are saying to customers? We had no idea. And that even though that, again, puts us in kind of an awkward situation where we're like, hey, you guys need to align on this, it's actually a really important function, because it's not that misalignment wouldn't be there if it wasn't called out. It would just continue and continue and continue until something gave. So I think it's really important to have that function, because it catches that misalignment early, so you don't end up with reps sending messaging that doesn't align with your go-to-market strategy. Another big problem, I think, is that the content manager sometimes is expected to perform all of the skill sets of the other functions, especially on teams that have, that are maybe just beginning to have a sales enablement or sales engagement strategy, that because the content manager sort of touches all of the different parts within.
Wait, can I stop you for a second? Yeah. So are you saying that, like, basically someone could say, you own everything content? And that might not be the right thing if you're a leader, might be not the right thing to do, because there's different skill sets there. Is that what you're saying? Like, be wary of that. You might not want to put everything on one person, all things content.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a workaround, right? Again, if you're understaffed, for example, and you don't have the headcount or the capacity or the budget to have 3 or 4 people on your team putting effort into this, I think it's a choice that an organization can make to say, okay, we have one person that's going to be the analyst, the writer, the manager, the owner, the enabler. That's the right word for that. But it's not necessarily an obvious choice. Like, it's a decision you can make under certain circumstances. But what I've seen is that when one person, I think we actually have people on our internal team that have been put in this situation before, where they're doing every single thing, and it might actually be a better use of hours within your org to say, okay, someone is really, really good at writing, so they should be able to dedicate, 5 hours a week or, 30 hours a month or whatever you need to writing that content. And maybe there's already somebody that's doing some analysis with Salesforce or with, another platform that could also do analysis and outreach. So I think what I'm trying to get at here is to say it's not an obvious choice to just have one person do everything sales engagement. It's a better choice to think about what skill sets are necessary to perform all of these functions and who is best suited to perform that.
Good.
And I think the benefit of having, as many eyes as possible on the content supply chain is that you get input from other areas in the org and you get sort of checks and balances so that, if one person is in charge of everything, they might not be making the best decisions about your content strategy, or they might just be sort of making it up as they go, which again, we see it at a lot of startups and it's not always unsuccessful, right? Sometimes it works well to just throw something out there and see what sticks and just reiterate as soon as possible. Yeah, totally. So I wouldn't discourage people from doing that. But if we're really talking about how can you make strategic, intentional decisions when you have resources to dedicate to these things, it is really important to not just, assume that because this person is going to touch sort of every point on the content supply chain that they can actually perform that entire function. That the content manager is really a project manager first and foremost, and they're, like you said, they're a great communicator, and that's the most important skill set to look for in someone that's going to be the content manager. They might not be a very good writer, but they should be a good project manager, and they should have really good communication skills.